Forgotten how to do this. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our special city council meeting. I would like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Gentlemen, when I call on your name, if you can please state that you are present. Mayor Wells.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz. Councilmember Goebel.
Present.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Present.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Here.
Thank you.
Your speaker's kind of garbled when it comes to me.
Who's this, Bob?
Yes.
Mine? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the meeting. The meeting is called to order. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief moment of silence. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
to the republic,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
one
with
nation,
liberty and justice
under
for all.
God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I called this special council meeting to discuss our COVID-19 laws and regulations. The people of El Cajon are suffering. It's highly unfair and nonsensical to me that big box stores, grocery stores, club stores, and now schools are open while nail salons, restaurants, churches, and other businesses and organizations have been shuttered. The state of California and the county of San Diego, of course, may continue to levy fines and criminal charges for violations, but I am proposing that the El Cajon Police Department not waste their valuable time enforcing masks, non-essential business, and social distancing laws. The people are suffering from not only financial ruin, but many are enduring severe depression, anxiety, isolation, and many other emotional, spiritual, and sociological deprivations as a result of the stunning government overreach that we've seen in the past few months. I'd like to answer some questions preemptively. In talking about this on radio and television and Facebook, many people have come to me and said, why don't you believe in wearing a mask? Why don't you believe in social distancing? Why do you not believe that this is a serious disease? I want to clear that. I absolutely believe that it's smart to wear a mask, especially if you feel like you're in danger in any way. I think social distancing makes a lot of sense. I think that it's a very serious disease. Obviously, some people have gotten very sick, but as you'll see in a presentation in a little while, it's a fairly small number. And I think that in any situation, you have to outweigh the risks against what it costs. And I think we're at a point now where the cost has become too severe. I have felt for many, many months, and I know other council members may feel the same way, that people have come to me and asked me to do something to help them. And I felt very frustrated that there was very little I could do. These regulations came mostly from the state and from the county, and our job was just to enforce them. People have had to shutter their businesses. They're not able to send their kids to school. They're not able to pay the rent. They're not able to pay the mortgage. They're not. In some cases, they can't put food on the table. I also, my background in mental health as a doctor of psychology, I know that there are millions of people in America that have an underlying psychiatric condition that they live with, and it doesn't take much to trigger them to a point where they're in crisis. The loss of a job, problem in a relationship, financial problems can all send people spiraling out of control psychiatrically to the point where we have problems with depression, anxiety, loneliness, isolation, and suicide. In doing some research, I looked today, the city of Fresno reports that their suicide rate is up 70% over last year. And that concerns me. So I felt very strongly that I wanted to reach out to the people and say, we as a city hear you. We hear how you've been affected by this and how hard it's been for you. And we're standing with you and standing for you. So that's why I called this meeting, to talk about that, to talk about the enforcement. I'm going to what we're going to do today is we're going to pass it off first to our city manager, who's going to give us a presentation. Then we're going to open up to public comments, and then we're going to have discussion amongst the council members. So, Graham, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're pulling up the item right now. The intent of this is not to, staff does not have a recommendation in this, so our intent is to provide the latest information that we've received from the governor's office at a press conference that was held at noon today. So I thought it would be helpful for the city council and the public to understand what some of the new rules that we're operating under. And then I'm going to provide some data that is specific to San Diego County in terms of number of active cases, but also El Cajon estimated active cases. And I present that data because I think it's important to understand the scale of what we're talking about. I think it's important, and in part because even though the county provides a lot of this information on its website, very little of it's reported actually by the media. It's the most sensational numbers possible, and when you see the numbers, it's actually surprisingly low in the city of El Cajon. Anecdotally, I'll just share this with the council as well. I had a meeting this morning with one of our franchise utility representatives, and typically when one of our representatives, whether it be a Cox or AT&T or Waste Management, they anticipate a certain amount of time that they spend on the phone with a customer. And they've said that the length of their phone calls has grown substantially in the last few months because people are so desperate just to have human interaction. And so I think a lot of the social distancing that we feel is having an impact on our community. We don't have any data about that yet, but at some point we will. But right now it's a lot of anecdotal stuff. So anyways, I thought I'd share this. So starting on July 15th up through today, the following were closed: indoor malls, hair salons, barbershops, personal care businesses, gyms and fitness centers, places of worship, indoor worship, indoor restaurant, dining, museums were closed, entertainment such as movie theaters, bowling alleys, arcades, office-based businesses that are non-essential, and then bars that do not serve food. And there's actually more, but I just chose the ones that have an impact to the city of El Cajon. We don't have zoos, so I didn't include that. But there's others on that list. At the governor's press conference today, he announced the establishment of a new protocol, which also allows some businesses to slowly open up depending on where a county is in terms of number of cases. And so it's probably hard to read this screen from where you're at, but there are a county can be categorized into 4 different levels of risk. Widespread being the greatest, and frankly, the majority of the state of California is that darker purple that you see on the screen. And then there's substantial. San Diego County is in that substantial range, and that's those that have come off the list. And then there's also moderate, and then also minimal. Moderate and minimal, there's very few of those counties, and they're mostly in the northern part of the state without a lot of population. So San Diego County is pretty rare in the state of California, and I think it attests to the work that has been done at the local government level, at the county level, and by a lot of our residents and our businesses. Because of this category, starting on August 31st, so next Monday, indoor shopping malls can be open at 50% capacity. Hair salons, barbershops, personal care facilities can be opened with modifications, typical personal protection modifications. Gyms and fitness centers can be open at 10% capacity. Places of worship can be opened at 25% capacity or 100 individuals, whichever is the smaller number. Indoor restaurant dining can be open at 25% capacity or 100 individuals. Again, the smaller of those numbers. Museums at 25% capacity. Entertainment, this is a bit of a mixed bag. Movie theaters can be open at 25% capacity or 100, whichever is less. Bowling alleys cannot be open. Arcades, only outdoor arcades such as go-karts and mini golf and batting cages can be open, but indoor arcades cannot be open. Office-based businesses that are non-essential should continue to work remotely as they have been. Bars that do not sell food should remain closed. So that's kind of the latest. Schools are also, for at least us, are part of that. Starting September 1st, they're allowed to be opened at a smaller level of capacity than they are now, unless they have been able to obtain a waiver or can show distancing. So this graph shows the number of active COVID cases and the number of deaths. The blue line is the number of active cases. It's estimated in San Diego County, and the red bars are deaths in the county. As you can see, around the middle of July, we had a pretty massive spike, and it had been increasing over time, but we clearly are on a downward slope. The last few days, there has been a slight uptick in the number of active cases, but there has been a significant drop in active cases over the last month and a half. This shows El Cajon's active cases, and it also includes our skilled nursing facilities. And we know, and we haven't been able to dive deep into the data because the data is just becoming available, and even some of the data that will help us tease out the skilled nursing facilities, we don't have access to that yet, but we're striving to get that. But even with that data, which we think is between 40% and 50% of all of our active COVID cases, we are at about, we're about 150 active cases currently in the city of El Cajon. So if you look at that on a per capita basis or per 1,000 people, that's 1.4 people per 1,000 individuals, residents. And if you were to take out the skilled nursing facilities or the convalescent homes, it actually is less than one person per 1,000 residents that we have. So it's not a big, it's serious, but it's not as big as sometimes I've heard it made out to be. This also came from the county. I think this is important. This shares with us what percentage, or we've heard that a lot of individuals with underlying health conditions are more susceptible or more vulnerable to COVID-19 than others. Well, it turns out 96% of those that have succumbed to COVID-19 have passed away had underlying conditions. And these are the conditions that exist: hypertension, diabetes, cardiac disease are the top three. And this adds up to more than 100 because there's some individuals with multiple issues. So 96% of those that have passed away have an underlying condition, meaning only 4% of COVID deaths in San Diego County are those without an underlying condition. So again, and we've heard the CDC talk about this, we've heard WHO talk about it, that there should, if you have an underlying condition, you should take additional precautions. And as a society, we should be looking after those individuals. So, Mr. Mayor, that kind of is just a thumbnail of some of the big announcements that have been made recently and some data that I think may provide some context for the council's discussion.
Okay, great. Before I go to public comment,
Okay, sir, before I start, Mr. McClellan, can you hear me okay? Mr. Kendrick? Mr. Kendrick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And you can hear me okay? It sounds clear?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, sir, we received so far a total of 46 comments. 11 of them were submitted without a name, and all of them were asking for the mask orders to stay in place, so I will not read those. but then we still have 33, 34 comments to read. Some of these comments had some profanity in it, and I think out of respect for people here and people who may be listening at home, I will just substitute those words with saying blank, with your permission.
That's fine, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the first comment is actually from an anonymous, but it reads, as a resident of El Cajon, I am disheartened to see that there is a discussion item on the City Council agenda about whether El Cajon should enforce the County of San Diego public health orders. As one of the 18 cities that make up San Diego, El Cajon has a responsibility to not just the people who live and work in our community, but also to our neighbors. Through strict public health measures, San Diego County was the first in Southern California to reduce our caseload and begin to consider reopening some shuttered business. It is sad to walk on Main Street and see so many businesses closed and many permanently. We know that these safety measures have hurt our economy and have harmed us socially and emotionally. It's hard for everyone. What is harder, though, is to fail to enforce the basic health measures that are helping us begin to emerge from the latest spike in the crisis. What is harder to see our caseload spike and our elderly residents fearful to leave their homes because they cannot count on our elected officials and the police department to enforce basic laws to keep us safe, such as mask wearing in public and keeping people from congregating. I urge you to continue to be a partner to our county health officer and the experts who are working so diligently to keep us safe. I hope that everyone in our community will continue to make good decisions about hygiene, social distancing, and complying with health orders. But if they do not, I want to know that you will make sure that our community stays as safe as possible. Thank you for your consideration. Next comment is from Juliana Macher. If you will no longer be enforcing COVID-19 health orders, I will no longer shop in your city permanently. Easy enough to shop in La Mesa. La Mesa has everything El Cajon does, including a mall, Walmart, and auto dealerships where I can buy a car next year. I'm 64 years old with a heart condition. I have plenty of retirement money and options for where I shop. I will also let all my friends know on social media what El Cajon is doing. Don't be blank. Next comment from Anne. It reads, I am shocked and disappointed to hear that the mayor feels that the safety and suppression of the spread of COVID is not the top priority of our city. Without the enforcement of masks and social distancing, we risk another spike in cases that could eliminate all the recent progress in reducing case numbers. Schools have finally... Did I cut out? Sorry. Schools have finally been given the green light to open, and the plan is putting that opportunity at risk. Families have been anticipating this option, and you are willing to throw it away. I hope every parent who wants their children to be able to go back to school for longer than a month remembers who to blame if schools have to close again because this reckless idea is implemented. Non-essential businesses that are close to reopening with proper precautions could experience a successful endeavor if health orders are followed. But if the mayor and the rest of this council puts their head in the sand and ignore and not enforce the safety precautions, community outbreaks will occur, and the blame will be placed upon your backs for those innocents who contract the virus and die. For the children who have to go back to distance learning, and for the businesses who have to shut their doors yet again, shame on you. If even one life worth something as simple as social distancing and wearing a mask, the selfish ignorance continues when you tell elderly and those with, I'm not sure what she meant to stay home. For some, that is a luxurious option, and they have the means of having needed supplies delivered, but what about those who do not? Those elderly or at-risk persons who have to get their own groceries, medications, or even attend a doctor's appointment, they have no choice but to enter a community who does not value their lives or their safeties at all. It was obvious this summer what will happen when a community becomes lax about safety precautions. It results in setbacks with hurt businesses, families, and children. If we must shelter in place again, do the right thing. Enforce safety measures here in El Cajon and put your efforts in supporting the safe reopening of all businesses, including those non-essential businesses. prove that our city leaders feel the same way about all the residents of El Cajon and not just out for businesses who send campaign money their way. From Stephen, I am not a person interested in politics, but hearing this decision has forced me to say something. I cannot abide this choice to not enforce social distancing or masks. It is utter disregard of public safety, akin to denying the fire department the right to put out fires. Regardless of personal feelings or concerns of breathing comforts, the facts data proves over and over again by multiple separate groups all say the same thing: masks slow the spread, social distancing slows the spread, enforcing safety procedures slows the spread of COVID-19, a disease we will still do not have a cure for. This isn't like a cold or flu that can be tackled with medicine and contained. Corona is currently incurable, and slowing its spread is the only thing we're able to do. Saying that these measures to slow the spread are no longer worth enforcing is tantamount to discarding fire safety laws. The flames of COVID will spread unchecked, and the resulting deaths will be on your hands and the hands of people who support this insane decision. I'm sorry, this is one of my no name, supporting a mask to keep the mask in place. From Samantha A., I believe that it is reprehensible that the City Council is even debating the health and safety of the general public. The fact that you are even thinking about no longer enforcing the mask rule is absolutely ridiculous, and it endangers vulnerable communities, particularly communities of color and people in low-income areas. To say that people at risk should just stay home reeks of privilege and makes me believe that you do not truly care about the people you are representing. We are literally living in the middle of a pandemic, despite people wanting to believe otherwise. The virus does not discriminate. It can affect people of all ages and walks of life. And to ignore that is, quite frankly, blank on your part. Stop debating the real health concerns. This is very real. Make sure members of the community protect one another. Lead by example. From Madeline C., I seriously cannot believe how blank our local leaders are to decide that they know better than medical health professionals who say it is absolutely necessary to wear a mask. We have been doing so well as a county, and you're about to make El Cajon the equivalent of a group project member who drags the rest of their team down to a failing grade. There is a reason East County has a bad reputation, and it's because we have a mayor who is not only blank, but is callous and malicious person. You really said at risk people need to stay home. How are they supposed to get groceries or shop for essentials? Are you going to go personally shop and make deliveries for every single at-risk constituent? Election day is coming, and the elderly, who are the largest active voting demographic, are going to remember that you have made it clear that you do not value their lives. Young people are just as angry too, but I'm so glad the people that you have decided to agree with are the Karens. When the kids can no longer go back to school, you're going to lose their support as well. Choose wisely or be forced out. This person wrote, as a very angry constituent. So you have decided to risk everyone's lives. Congrats. That is the name of your new blank reality show, Mr. Mayor. You are a blank and just one red nose away from being a whole clown. If you pass this measure, I will make sure that every public appearance you have is accompanied by a circus music. I hope you and everyone who supports you get to experience the equivalent of a lion tamer. Blank, people are going to die, and I hope you are haunted by every single person who passes away as a direct result of your decisions. From Michelle Hagan, given the city's recognition of the seriousness of this virus seen in the following statement, In quotes, due to the highly contagious nature of the COVID-19 virus, members of the public are invited to submit their comments by clicking on the link below. And the quotes, it seems ludicrous to consider relaxing restrictions now before COVID-19 is more under control. I am a mental health worker and strongly suggest El Cajon follow the guidelines supported by evidence-based practices to ensure the safety of residents. I strongly support the city in making decisions based on the latest known science about how to contain the spread of the virus. Next comment from Susan Davidson. City Council members, I am disturbed and dismayed that the Council is contemplating not enforcing the county and state health orders for the COVID-19 outbreak. There is significant risk that the virus will spread if these orders are not enforced. I hope that the city will continue to provide economic support for our community through all county, state, and federal means available. The physical devastation and deaths caused by COVID-19 are permanent. Prevention is the only answer through mandatory use of masks and social distancing. Please protect our community, especially our vulnerable seniors and those with underlying medical conditions. Enforcement has been working. The numbers are going down, and let's keep it that way. Thank you. From Michael Hagan, given actually, Mr. Hagan repeated what the previous person wrote. From Cheryl Tade, I'm extremely concerned to hear that you are suggesting the public stop wearing face masks. We are in a pandemic period. If our leaders cannot lead in a positive, intelligent manner, then we need new leaders. Our community has one of the highest per capita outbreaks in San Diego, if not the highest. To even consider reducing the bare minimum of wearing a mask to protect each other is liable and honestly disrespectful on a grand scale. I would like to see enforcement of mask wearing through warning and tickets. From Jean Britton, I am extremely disappointed in our mayor that he would think it is a good idea to not enforce safety measures during a global pandemic. Our city is ranked 4th in the county for positive COVID cases. We are just seeing a decrease in cases, which is a positive sign that this will allow non-essential businesses to be open soon and safely. I feel you are putting the entire community at risk by not enforcing the social distancing and mask wearing in our community. This is a medical issue about keeping people from dying, not a political issue about businesses that are failing because of being closed. Why is the City Council even considering this? We will end up with increased numbers and more deaths in our city. It's going to make people shop and go eat in another city nearby that have safety measures in place. The mental health issues people are having can be addressed in other ways, not by opening stores and not enforcing safety measures. Mental health won't be an issue if the people are dead from COVID or in a hospital on a ventilator. Our local hospital will not be able to handle the increased number of cases that will occur if our city does not keep safety measures in place. We tried opening earlier and it failed. Why would opening now and without safety measures seem like a good idea? Please consider all the residents in this area and vote to keep these safety measures in place and come up with a better solution for mental health care. From Andrea Reyes.
In the garage, adding more bottles to the bag.
I would like El Cajon to keep enforcing the mask and social distance order. El Cajon has the 4th highest number of cases in the county, and it's way too soon for this. Safe, then sorry. El Cajon does not want to stand out for handling this issue poorly. From Bill Marchant, I am in favor of City Council directing ECPD to not enforce COVID-19 laws and regulations. From David Barkheimer, what does El Cajon epidemiologist recommend regarding COVID-19? Exactly nothing, because there isn't one. Please listen to the County Board of Health. Statistics released today show neighboring Santee with 6.6 cases per 1,000 residents, far surpassed by El Cajon with a whopping 17.6 cases per 1,000 residents. There is a difference between shopping in a grocery store where there may be 1 or 2 other people in the aisle who are likely to be over 6 feet away and sitting in close proximity to a nail technician for an extended period of time. This pandemic has hit all of us in an unprecedented way, and I grieve alongside those small business owners who are hurting. I grieve even more for the families of those 181,000 22 Americans who are dead because of COVID-19. With El Cajon having 11.9% of residents older than 65 years, please listen to the County Board of Health so that those 12,000 plus residents are not needlessly put at risk. Please don't adopt a save the business community and let the people die strategy. It's cruel and it's beneath the City Council. Next comment from Greg Barr reads, your job as a mayor and city council is to keep residents safe. To not enforce county and state guidelines is irresponsible. If you allow super spreaders to sicken our population, you should be held liable. Please continue to follow state and county guidelines. From Mr. Walter Weissman, I think your idea to stop enforcement of COVID-19 rules is dangerous and blank. From Chris McClenny from District 3, does this include large gatherings / private parties / family gatherings, ? Concern about hotspots popping up. Will police still be responding to reports of large gatherings in homes? ? From Kevin Schrader, please enforce the state and county COVID-19 health orders in the city of El Cajon. Over the last few months, other Southern California cities have tried this and went back to the health orders because the public got sick and COVID cases increased in their community. The city of El Cajon has many acute care facilities within its borders, and not adhering to the health orders will put those patients in danger of contracting COVID by workers and visitors who have come in contact with an infected person that was in close proximity to them during, say, lunch inside a restaurant. Remember, science has proven that you can be a carrier of COVID-19 and be infectious for up to 5 days before you show signs of the disease. Or you could be asymptomatic and infect someone else's mother or grandmother if you don't follow the health orders. We had the same issues in 1918 during the last pandemic. To put this into perspective, 53,000 Americans were killed in Vietnam War, which lasted 8 years. So far, over 185,000 Americans have been killed by COVID in just over 8 months. The danger to the public is real. From Jason Britton, good afternoon. I wanted to share my opinion as a resident of El Cajon since 2003. I am truly disappointed that our local government is considering opening up the city of El Cajon to not have precautions in place to protect our residents. An example, requiring face mask coverings and social distancing. I understand the points mentioned by the mayor for the local businesses in El Cajon. However, the health and safety of the residents should take priority over these businesses. Most businesses have been able to adapt to the current COVID environment while maintaining proper safety measures. We have seen what happens if the COVID precautions are reduced. For example, second spike in June, July, and August. If the city of El Cajon does remove these safety restrictions, I will most likely take my business outside of El Cajon and shop in neighboring areas where I will feel safe. I am hoping that El Cajon will keep enforcing the social distancing and face mask coverings. From Julie Griggs, please stop enforcement of these unconstitutional COVID mandates. The governor is picking and choosing what businesses are allowed to open just because he can. There is no rhyme or reason that Walmart can be open, but the mall can't. There is no reason that you can get a medical procedure, but you cannot get a haircut. Please do not enforce my child to wear a mask at school when they are virtually at zero risk of dying from COVID. My child has a right to breathe clean and fresh air. Thank you for listening, and open up the churches. Churches are essential. From Betty, please open up our city fully with no restrictions. Remove the mask mandate so that we can freely worship, shop, dine, and spend money in the city of El Cajon. The threat of this virus is over when the survival rate is 99.6%. Let's get our city open and back to work at 100% capacity without fear of punishment or retribution from any government agency. Be brave, make a stand. Let's open up and leave safety measures in the individual residents' hands, not the government. Thank you for considering these actions. God bless you all. From Malene Nelson Schrader, lowering the COVID requirements set by the state and county is an irresponsible act. Opening up a city that has a high immigrant population that doesn't speak English or visit the city site to leave a comment. It's eliminating a huge sector of the city feeling on the topic. El Cajon has a huge acute care population and elderly population. You can see them in the park talking and playing cards. People are asymptomatic. Do you want to infect and kill someone's parent because you opened up non-necessary parts of a business? If people want to eat at restaurants, that's fine, but do it outside. This is Southern California, enjoying the warm nights. It's time to adapt, reinvent, and modify our behaviors. Going backwards to save a few bucks just places all the people in this town in a repeat the cycle scenario. It will never stop, and more things like the flu and fire will keep us from moving forward. The city is thinking only about now and not about the future of the entire town. This is just a knee-jerk reaction that may solve one fiscal problem, but can add and create many health and welfare problems. Are you going to come to each house in the city who has family member with COVID? Are you going to take care of them? Are you going to pay for their funeral? If your answer is no, then you cannot circumvent the state and county COVID mandates. Hold the course. People before money. Business come back, people die. Do you know people with COVID? I do. 40 years old on a respirator for 9 days. A 26-year-old with a heart attack. It's not worth a plate of food indoors. This is one of my other, no name, keep the mask in place. From Moline Schrader, she submitted 2 items. From Victoria T., the decision to not enforce social distancing and wearing masks in public is dismissive of everyone, especially those who are immunocompromised. At best, and life-threatening and absolutely blank on the part of this council at worst. The lives of your constituents who have been providing essential services and everyone else are not to be trifled with because of the selfish, wishful thinking that this state is above a pandemic that is literally causing the death of thousands. Be responsible, care for one another, wear your mask, wash your hands, and keep your distance. From Joel Knack, Mr. Mayor, I read in the Union Tribune this morning that your strategy for getting past this pandemic is to ignore science and put the public at risk by directing our police not to enforce health directives like wearing a mask and social distancing. How many more people have to die? With leadership like this, we may never get over this pandemic. I can't tell you how disappointed I am with your leadership on this. I am a business owner in El Cajon, running a service company which takes me into many homes and businesses. You, sir, with this thinking, are putting me and my family at unnecessary risk with this blank thinking. I agree that salons, restaurants, churches are bearing the brunt of this pandemic, but with orders like you are considering not enforcing the 2 simple things that work in combating this disease, wearing a mask and social distancing, you are going to do more harm than good. By the way, big box stores, grocery stores, club stores, and schools are practicing everything that you want to stop by directing our police to not enforce the rules set to get us out of a pandemic. You will be setting the stage for more social conflict between the non-believers and people like me that just want everyone to be safe. I can't believe I have to explain this to my mayor. I expect better from you, sir. We have about 10 more comments, sir. From Charles, shame on you. How dare you mess with the health of others? El Cajon has been a hotspot, and this is going to make it worse. From Mohammed Tuama, although it is a controversial decision, but it will be approved by the council members anyway. Many El Cajon residents may not differentiate between not enforcing the public health orders and the importance of wearing masks and keep physical distancing when possible, especially with non-English speakers. If the council decided to move ahead with this decision, I would recommend a citywide campaign in multiple languages, urging the residents to keep wearing masks and keep physically distancing themselves from others when possible. I hope that Mayor Wells, with his public health experience, will understand the importance of this. This is another anonymous. to whom it may concern. While I myself am kind of over the mask thing, as an essential worker in the medical field, I understand the importance of them. They should remain mandatory. San Diego just got off the watch list, so why are we so eager to get right back on there? We shouldn't be allowing a 2 steps forward, 5 steps back sort of mentality. Why would we want anything less than a positive trajectory towards no more positive cases or tests? While I know the numbers may seem to be dwindling and becoming a commonplace, I believe that masks should still be essential to help slow the rate of spread even further. It will probably never be absolute zero until a vaccine is created, but why not get it as low as possible for as long as possible while still giving people the freedom to go outside? Wearing a mask is not the end of the world, and that's coming from someone who has to wear one 10-plus hours a day, 6 days a week, while also having asthma and various other respiratory issues. Please consider keeping the mask law in effect. And the new comments received, please bear with me. From Bailey Schrader, reopening El Cajon is gross negligence. We have seen a small dip in numbers of cases that would rise again if you open back up. This is irresponsible and wrong. El Cajon needs to keep enforcing the current COVID-19 regulations as they are for the safety of the city. People's lives are in your hands. Are you really comfortable killing hundreds of people just so you can eat inside and get a haircut? To lift restrictions would be irresponsible as leaders. Next comment. From Tamur Sial. COVID is still a threat to us and the world at large. The state of California has guidelines to reopen based on science and measurements. Why are we trying to open without achieving the right numbers to more safely reopen? We will not be successful stopping the spread of COVID if we deny the huge threat it is. Beyond initial infection, if we can have long-term health impacts on people. We are at 4.9 positive rate per 100,000 residents. This puts us on the upper threshold of the moderate rating category. The new plan set out by the governor, who is making this plan basis on science and data. If we are looking to alter his plan, what data and science-based information does the city of El Cajon have to prove it has a better plan and understanding to make the changes to the guidelines set out by the governor? Michelle Metschel writes, I just want to say that I support Mayor Wells' decision regarding the El Cajon Police Department not enforcing closures and or mask wearing. This should be a personal decision. Everyone knows what needs to be done. Our officers have better things to do than chase after people who are non-compliant. We need to use our resources carefully, and whether someone wears a mask or not should not be the concern of our police department. And she signs it as Michelle Metschel, El Cajon resident and candidate for El Cajon City Council District 2. I think we have about 5 more, sir. From Mohammed Hassan, I want the city to enforce masks and protect the public. We are in dangerous time and want to look out for our community. The president and the mayor are in line to kill minorities. Next comment from Tyrone Johnson. Stop telling the police not to enforce mask orders. I'm a RN and have to live with this daily. Why is there a guy wearing MAGA on the camera, and why aren't other citizens allowed to be on video? Next comment. Patrick Griot. Has the city consulted any scientific studies or modeling in considering the rules related to mask wearing and social distancing? If so, which studies? If not, why not, and what is the basis for understanding the impacts to its decisions? Furthermore, why are none of the attendees of the meeting in the council chambers wearing a mask? Isn't this itself a violation of the county health order? The mayor and council should be leading by example, including wearing masks indoors. The last comment is from, actually, somebody submitted a blank comment. That was the end of the comment, sir.
All right. Morgan, do I need to close the public hearing?
Well, this is not a public hearing, so you don't need to take that action.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to the council. Before we get started, I want to clear up a couple of things. I'm not asking anybody not to wear masks. I'm not asking anybody not to social distance. I want to clear things up for perspective. Since all this began, we have given out 0 citations. So the change is not going to be palpable. What I'm doing is I'm trying to give people some hope. I'm offended by the minimizing of this problem by saying it's just about wanting to eat inside or have my nails done or get my hair cut or anybody. 50% of our businesses have closed. The city's going to lose $7 million, and that's not the real problem. The real problem is that $7 million means that translates into people are not going to be having income coming into their houses through their businesses. People are suffering. And what offends me about a lot of this is, if we're going to be completely honest, most of this posturing is political. People are taking political sides because they think it's going to affect the presidential election one way or the other. And so they're willing to destroy people's lives. All this talk about science, we've seen the science. 1.4 people per 1,000. Most of those in nursing homes already. Most of those within a year or so of dying anyway. Somewhere between 96 and 99% of people survive the illness. I don't want to minimize it and say that anybody should die. I don't want to minimize it and say that it's not a tragedy if anybody gets sick. But we, as a people, as human beings, have dealt with disease and death in every generation on earth for as long as people have lived. Sometimes I analogize this to, we saw a spider in the house, and so the answer was, let's burn the house down. And let's burn our neighbor's house down as well, because there might be a spider there. I think it's just time to get past the political posturing and do some things that make sense. And what I'm asking today is only that we give people some hope. Like I said, we're going from having written 0 citations to continue to write 0 citations. Nothing is changed. But it does tell the person who owns the hair salon, and owns the restaurant, owns the a la carte store, the hardware store, that we're not unsympathetic to their cause, and we're not willing to sell them out for political reasons, that we think it's more important that we stand by our political posturing than that they feed their family. And that's why I brought this today. And I'm open to discussion, and I think we should have a robust discussion about it, and I think we should address everybody's concerns. And I'm going to open it up to the other council members.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we did receive another public comment, so I'd recommend we take that before we open it up.
Okay, we'll do one more public comment then.
Thank you, sir. Let me find it then. This one is from David Chenoweth, and Mr. Chenoweth writes, "This is so dishonest. The ECPD has not enforced COVID-19 state and county health orders since your public town hall, and the ECPD does not obey the mitigation mandates, nor do they wear face covering masks. Shame on ECPD. Mayor Wells, your leadership has been restless, irresponsible, and simply partisan. Shame on you. We the public are sick and tired of your political shunts during this pandemic." End of comment.
Graham, I have a question. Do you know how many the other cities are writing citations?
I don't know that. I know the media's asked public records on that. I haven't seen that total. I was on a Zoom call yesterday with the majority of city managers in the county. I asked that very question. The only city that responded yes was the city of Coronado, who wrote a citation to a man that was drunk at night after curfew. So that was the only COVID-related citation of the cities that responded to my inquiry.
Interesting.
Remember Encinitas, I believe, was ticketing people parked along Coast Highway or something back in May or June?
And the city of San Diego is doing something similar as well. But for business, like ticketing businesses or issuing citations to businesses, there's been very few and far between, if any.
Just to be honest, Del Mar, I think, did hire people to go out into the public and cite people for not wearing masks, which I think is an infringement on the constitutional rights. But so, say, when I want to have some discussion, I can make a motion, but I'm guessing you want to discuss this a bit. Gary? Gary, can you hear us?
Yeah, Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah, can we turn him up at all, or? Okay.
I'll try and speak louder. How's that?
Thanks.
Okay. The primary function of local government, as far as I'm concerned, is to protect the people. We protect the people in lots of different ways. And the police and fire, of course, are the primary ones. And then this kind of reminds me of a situation my sister had when she moved out of the house when she was about 20. And there was a deck behind her house, or rather her apartment. And in the middle of the night, she saw a knife coming through, cutting the screen. And luckily, the police were available to come get her, to help her out. And there are a lot of things that go on in a big city, and we are pretty close to being a big city, that are bad. And there are murders, rapes, robberies, burglaries, a lot of domestic violence, especially today during the COVID situation, where people's lives are in danger. And I've gone on a number of police ride-alongs, and they are absolutely stretched to the breaking point. I was actually breathless after an 8-hour ride-along. I was exhausted, and all I did was watch them. And I don't purport to be an expert in law enforcement, but I can tell you our police chief is, and I have 100% confidence in our police chief and all of our police officers that they will make the right decisions. And I like the police chief to make the decision on how we prioritize calls. And if he sees something that's a danger to the public, then of course he should have an officer sent out. If they got some guy without, that's not wearing a mask, coughing over people, certainly the police should respond on that one. But in my mind, rapes, murders, robberies, burglaries, carjackings, that has a priority. So I would really like to give this to the police chief, and he should have complete authority on this, as he has had in the past. And I think the overwhelming majority of our residents obey the law or try to as best as they can. And I don't see people smoking anymore in the mall since we passed the no smoking ordinance, but we haven't given out any tickets for smoking. And our citizens really are responsible people. And I think that we should put resources where the police chief thinks they should be. He's the expert. I'm not.
Gary, I agree with you, but one modification of that, I think we should instruct the city manager to work with the police chief on prioritizing those calls, because they report to the city manager.
I'm all for that.
Thanks.
I'm not really clear on what your proposal is.
Yeah, it's simple. I could, the motion that I would be making is move to direct the city manager to consider state and county COVID health regulations as a low priority and to allow business and the economy to reopen in a safe manner.
So a point of order, I don't think we're voting on anything today. The staff report just said we're giving feedback to the thing. Can we vote on that?
The subject matter for this item is to provide direction to the staff, and so the motion would be simply to provide direction. And in your case, your direction is always to the city manager or the city attorney, as opposed to the police chief or fire chief or any of the other employees of the city.
Could I add something to that, what Gary said?
Bob, let's let Steve finish, and then I'll come to you.
Okay.
So I think we've switched from tell the police not to enforce anything to prioritize the law. Could you read it one more time? I'm really...
Yeah, sure. Move to direct the city manager to consider state and county COVID-19 health regulations as a low priority and to allow businesses and the economy to reopen in a safe manner.
I don't think he has the authority to let businesses open.
Well, in regard to enforcement.
In regard to enforcement,
So, what I've said all along is that if somebody opens up a business and the county is going to fine them, then there's nothing we can do to stop that. The county they still have those regulations to deal with, but we're not going to send our police out on that. We're going to let our police do more important things.
Yeah, I'll hold my further comments. Get to Bob.
Bob?
Yes, I would like to add to what Gary said. Plus, you know what age you are, you know your health conditions. If you're over 50 or 60, you probably should be very cautious and careful about where you go and what groups you get in. But I've seen hundreds of protesters in different cities, and I haven't heard any reports of any outbreaks from them to the protests. But I think the chief is the one to make decisions, as Gary said. But you know what age group, if you're over 50 or 60 years old and you have health conditions, stay out of harm's way. Take personal responsibility for your health and safety. And the chief should make the decisions, but people should use personal responsibility and know what group they're in and what they need to do to keep out of the way of the coronavirus.
All right, Bob, thank you. Phil, did you want to weigh in? Steve, you want more discussion? I sense that you're uncomfortable with this, and I'm comfortable with discussing it.
Yeah, this is the awkwardness of public government, is we don't get to talk ahead of time and work things out, so rightly so. Here's what I'm uncomfortable with. I'm uncomfortable with managing city staff. I don't think that's the role of the council. I think that's the role of the city manager. I think that's the role of the police chief. And they use their judgment to address situations and priorities as they arise in the city. So I'm uncomfortable managing staff. That's one kind of uncomfortable situation I have. I think the fact that they have issued 0 citations and 0 code enforcement violations tells me they have exercised their judgment for the past 6 months, and this is the result. And I believe it's what we as a council desire, that they've proven that their judgment has prioritized things appropriately, in my view. And so I hate to take the judgment away and to say, now you need to make this a low priority. Because what happened if we handcuff them by saying it's a low priority? And it's up to the city manager. He can take our direction, but it's up to him to say, I disagree. We're going to move this way. And then we decide whether we want to continue working with the city manager.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So I'm uncomfortable with handcuffing the police who have shown excellent judgment so far. I'll call it restraint and appropriate response. They've responded to people's complaints. And there are others that they say, you know what, by the time we get to see that guy who's reported not to have a mask, he's going to be gone. And we do 75,000 calls a year for service, and that's just not going to make the list. And I think they have rightly prioritized already these things as a low priority. So I feel it's the Department of Redundancy department to say, let's make it a low priority, because their actions say they have already prioritized the 75,000 other calls higher than COVID, because we've got no violations. I get people's frustration. Having been a small business owner myself, I don't understand the state directives. You know, what started out as flatten the curve. And what's flatten the curve mean? Lengthen the spread, lengthen the number of cases. Let's spread it out so it doesn't overwhelm the healthcare system with a surge, like we saw in New York City and Italy and things like that. We did that. And then the conversation changed. Stop the spread. What happened? We achieved the goal. We have not overrun the healthcare system. And these poor business owners, they're like, we're throttling them. I should say the state is throttling them. Open, close, open. If you buy protective equipment and barriers and things like that. No, wait, close. Oh, now you can open. But you have to close again if something. I get small businesses can't take this much longer. But our direction today is, should we tie the hands of our city staff who have shown excellent judgment in already making this an appropriate, in my view, low priority? I think they're already doing the job. I'm just saying, I think it's already been done.
Yeah, well, I don't want to interrupt you. Well, first off, as a business owner myself, I mean, I know you understand this. That's a great point. Open, close, open, close. You got to hire people. You got to onboard them. You got to get the right insurances for them. You've got to get the payroll all set up for them. That's a massive undertaking to take a group of employees, fire them, and then bring them back, and then fire them and bring them back. But to me, that's only part of the issue. The part that brought me here today, now I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I'm not going to be political about this. I'm going to be completely transparent. People came to me, like I know they've come to you, and they said, please help, do something. I not only are people losing their businesses and losing their livelihood, but they've lost their hope. There are people that are isolated. I talked to a lady the other day who her husband died from something of cancer. Her daughter died from another problem, not COVID, and she's alone. And since this shutdown, she's not seen virtually any other human being. She used to go to church every week, but she can't do that now. She used to go meet at Izzy's restaurant, but she can't do that now. She's alone, and she's desperate. And I hear that story over and over and over again. And so when people have come to me, you know, at first I was with county. I said, no, we've got to stand firm and flatten the curve. We got to make sure the ICU beds aren't being overwhelmed like they were in Italy. And I agreed with that. And then, like you said, they changed the game. And then now we have plenty of ICU beds, but now that's not the issue anymore. The issue is we want nobody to ever get this disease, which is ridiculous. From a medical perspective, it's impossible. This disease is going to be around for the next 150 years. Everybody's going to be exposed to it. But I don't want to even get into that argument. We're not changing the rules. All we're doing is acknowledging to people that we hear them. And that's why I'm here today. So however we want to go about doing that, I'm fine with that. But I thought this is the best way that I could acknowledge that they're right. And interestingly enough, after all these comments, and by the way, I received probably over 1,000 comments on my Facebook page, 95% of them completely positive, very happy. After all these comments, it's ironic that the governor that they say that we're defying has come up with the same conclusion, that we could reopen on Monday. So it's, to me, to be upset about this is political. You're upset with me because you don't like my political point of view, but you're not upset with the governor who's doing the exact same thing that I'm proposing doing because of his political point of view. That's hypocrisy. And I'm tired of living that way. And I'm tired of subjecting our citizens to that kind of capricious, small-minded infighting that we're having as a political system right now. People their real problems are not political. They're really isolated. They're really losing their businesses. They're really losing their income. They're really going nuts because their kids haven't been out of the house in 6 months. And so I don't want to leave here without doing something. I suggest that we just can make a resolution that we would like the city manager to know that we like the way he's been doing it so far. We'd like him to continue prioritizing things the way he has. And that, I think, accomplishes what we want to accomplish, especially in light of the fact that the governor has already capitulated to some degree, even though he didn't know he was capitulating to us. But he's tacitly agreed with us. So what would you think about that?
I like that. We are affirming the current strategy of letting the city manager prioritize the pandemic in totality of all the other things going on in the city. He knows that our viewpoint is this is not a priority over all the other things going on in the city, and he has directed the police chief, who has directed his officers appropriately, and we're seeing 0 citations and 0 code violations, and I affirm that.
So I'd like to memorialize that just by saying that we do want the city manager to keep in mind the situations of all the people living in the city and to prioritize appropriately based upon the current state of of what's happening with the virus and what's happening with public health.
Yeah, I don't see much difference, as you say, going on what's going on today.
It's not much difference. This is symbolic to some degree.
My concern is if we say, tell the police to absolutely don't enforce, that we handcuff them for a single business that blatantly is a source of contagion.
I agree.
Because they lack care for others.
There was a case of, I think it was in San Diego, a person that had been infected with COVID. He was running around without a mask and embracing people and kissing them and trying to spread the disease. That's an assault. And I don't want to fall into the same trap that I think others have fallen in the other direction. I don't want to say that the disease doesn't exist. I don't want to get this disease. I'm wearing a mask. I don't want, if somebody's sick, I don't want them to come to my house. Absolutely. So I think we're in agreement. It's just a matter of figuring out how to phrase it.
Yeah, on a bigger picture, if you're talking about citations, which is a criminal thing, I don't think this rises to a level of a crime. That's just nuts. I don't think not wearing a mask, not staying 6 feet apart, if anybody was cited, but they're not cited, that's just nuts to call that a crime. Number two, what 12 people in the county are you going to get together and agree that that will be a conviction? It's not going to happen.
Well, I don't think
So what kind of
I don't think
resource?
the DA is ever going to prosecute
What
these.
kind of resources would the DA be using knowing that there's not 12 people who are going to convict somebody of a crime of not wearing a mask? And it's especially offensive when we're seeing 11,000 people released from prison.
You know, that's a very good point, and that's another reason why our police need to prioritize keeping our public safe.
They got to pay attention to potentially some of the 11,000 people that might end up in our community. That's got more importance to us than a mask. They're smart. They're good. They're great judges of situations.
So, Gary and Bob and Phil, did you want to make any more comments or have any more discussion before I make I don't want to drag this out. Gary?
Yeah, when I was going on the police ride-along, the officer always had 4 or 5 calls on his list to make, and every situation is unique. And some situations demand immediate attention, and some don't. And I just really trust our officers, our city manager, and our police chief to take into account how serious that call is. And so I think we should give the city manager direction to continue on his successful policies, and we should allow the city manager and the police chief to make the decision as what their priorities are. If there's some guy that has COVID and he's running around hugging and kissing people without a mask, in my mind, that would be a priority. There's a good chance he's going to infect a bunch of people. Sometimes there's a welfare check they have of some elderly person. Maybe that's a little bit less of a priority. But if someone's breaking into someone's house or a guy's beating his wife or kids, that's a priority. Okay. So, Bill, if you want to
Try to craft that into a motion.
kind of craft that in a motion, I'd be willing to support that.
All right. I'd like to make the motion then to instruct the city manager to continue prioritizing the COVID-19 enforcement as he has been, and to keep in mind the city council's direction that we want people to be treated gently and with understanding of their situation.
I'll second that.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. Thank you very much. That's the end of the city council meeting. When's our next council meeting?
It is on September 8th, which is Tuesday after Tuesday after Labor Day.
I will see you all at 3 o'clock on September 8th. Will that be here in person?
No, it'll not be in person. We're not
We're
ready
Zoom meeting?
technologically to do that. So.
Okay. See you then. Thank you.